Are you a fan of the Onyx Tavern? Are you an artist? Well, if you are, we're looking for you. The Onyx Tavern now has a request for any and all fan art submissions. So if you've ever drawn a picture of Rick the Bard Keep or Power Rangers mythology, we'd like you to go ahead and submit it. We'd like to be able to go ahead and promote any and all fan art by the fans of the Tavern on this channel. So please go ahead and submit anything you have to onyxtavern@gmail.com. And if it's a great submission, we will go ahead and promote it before each episode on this show. Again, anything will be accepted. Send to onyxtavern@gmail.com, and we hope to hear from you. Greetings and konnichiwa, and welcome to the Onyx Tavern. I'm your host, Rick the Bard Keep, bringing you episode 206 here at the Tavern, where tonight we're going to talk about Power Rangers Hyperforce. So let me get this off the bat. I really had no intention of talking about Hyperforce at all. It is something I was not interested in, am not interested in, really don't have anything to say about as a whole because, frankly, I look at it as extra, disposable, something not really important, whatever. But because of events that have happened this week and some interesting dialogue that I've had with Power Ranger fans and obviously Hyperforce fans, it just seems like I do need to address it in my own unique way, that I need to give you guys my opinion simply because, well, it's my show and that's what I do. I give you guys my opinion. That's the price of admission. And that, as usual, my opinion seems to be completely different from fandom. And I don't see anybody making these points. I don't see anybody arguing or advancing this particular viewpoint within the Power Rangers community. And I'm just utterly baffled at all of this. So I want to take a moment to really kind of talk about what Hyperforce is, what's happened, my thoughts on it, and just the whole encompassing discussion with it. Now, I do want to go ahead and let you guys know that if you are a fan of Hyperforce, you might not want to go ahead and listen to this episode simply because I really don't have anything nice to say. I mean, I'm going to talk about as much as I can, talk about the issues that I have, not so much with Hyperforce itself as a concept, but the way it is being perceived and the way it's working itself within the Power Rangers community. So, again, just a little bit of a warning right there as we go on. But first of all, what is Hyperforce? So Hyperforce is a Twitch channel, station, program, whatever. I don't know what the terminology is. I don't watch Twitch. It's a program that's on where basically it is a group of 6 or 7 actors, give or take, that are doing a tabletop RPG of Power Rangers. And each episode that they do a progression of story. They talk about their characters, what their characters are doing. They have Zords. They have a bunch of stuff. It's just a story of what's going on with the Hyperforce team of Power Rangers, which each, they're either an actor or they are just a fan or whatever. The Black Nerd is on there, where they're just really, you know, they're playing a game, folks. That's what they're doing. It's a let's play in a sense. I mean, I really don't know how to describe it better than that. It's a bunch of people sitting down playing a tabletop game, and we're watching them play it. Now, if you guys like let's plays, that's fine. I have no problem with people liking let's plays. Personally, I don't like let's plays simply because if I want to play a game, if I want to experience it and see what happens, I'm going to go buy that game, and I'm going to go play it. I don't need to sit down and watch a guy play a game, guy or girl, play a game, tell me what they're doing, and then give quote-unquote interesting commentary on what they are doing. Like, I don't understand how PewDiePie is such a big star for sitting down and playing video games and stuff. Now, I will admit to this. For those of you who've been around for a long time, when this channel did start, Raptor and I did do a Let's Play of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers video game. And we simply did that because it was an interesting experiment. We were trying to figure out what this channel was going to be. And frankly, I didn't like doing it. I didn't think it was one of our better efforts. And at the time, before the video was taken down, it was one of our worst viewed videos, basically. But I understand Let's Plays from a certain perspective. I just don't particularly like it. I don't like watching it. Watching Power Rangers Hyperforce is basically watching people playing a game that you cannot play. And that's one of the issues I have with it. When I first heard about this, the Hyperforce, they were coming out with a tabletop RPG thing. My first thought was, oh, so Power Rangers is going to get its own version of Dungeons and Dragons. That they're going to market a game, we can go out and buy it, get our Power Ranger friends together and play it. And they were talking about doing it on Twitch TV, which at that point I had never heard of, but they were, going to like demonstrate the game. I was like, oh, okay, they're going to show an introductory with a couple of people. They got Jen, or they got Aaron, who played Jen in Power Rangers Time Force, to explain the game, to show the game. I was like, oh, great. Then, of course, as time went on, I found out that no, they're not releasing the game, and this is the whole show. This is it. You're watching people play a game online. And, here's the thing. It's like, I never watched it when it came on. I did watch a video on YouTube. A couple of you guys did send me links to the YouTube channel, Hyper RPG's YouTube channel. And I really tried to watch the first episode. I really did. It was such a slog. I couldn't do it. I just could not sit there and watch these people. I tried playing one of my own games while doing it. I tried playing Civilization, I played Madden, I played Mario Maker. I'm just sitting there listening, and I'm just like, I'm so bored out of my mind, and I just, switched to Movie Bob. I could not do it. It just was not entertaining for me in the slightest. I couldn't do it. Even try to go back right now before doing this podcast to watch it, to get a little bit more data on it, and I just couldn't do it. It's the most boring thing in the world for me. And yeah, they got Paul on there, and that's great to watch him. He's finally become a Power Ranger in a sense, but I can't do it. I just couldn't do it. I did not enjoy it. And again, when I first heard of it, I was like, I can't do this. I can't watch people play a game that I'm not even allowed to go ahead and play itself. And as far as I can tell, they're not even releasing this game. This isn't even something that they're trying to market. And that's what I thought it was going to be. It was a marketing ploy for a new product for people to buy and go out and get. Play Power Rangers D&D. And while I've never been into tabletop games, I've never actually played one. I've never seen one, actually, and I don't know anybody who plays them. Not in my personal life, that is. It would be something I'd like to give a try. Game where you can make your own Power Rangers and your own Zords and have your own adventures. Yeah, that'd be something I'd be interested in doing. I'd have nobody to play with, though, because my wife is totally not in the Power Rangers and my daughter is too young, and for most of you guys probably know, I don't have any friends, so there would be no point to it. It would just be like my Power Rangers Trivial Pursuit game, sitting in a box somewhere collecting dust. Okay, so guys, that's my thing about Power Rangers Hyperforce and really kind of what I know about it. And yes, I know there's like a dozen or so episodes online, but again, I just can't watch it, and frankly, I just don't care. And I really thought when this came out, it's like, oh, this is just some disposable thing. This is, like the Power/Rangers film, which, yeah, I got overly angry about back in the day, and you guys probably still watched the video on that, but ultimately it's disposable. It means nothing. It's like now the Mighty Meowin' Rangers that they did, which I can't believe is an actual thing. I get really angry about that. I didn't really do a video on it because it's disposable. It means nothing. It's just, whatever. Cats dressed as Power Rangers. I got a little upset when they started putting those profiles of the cats on the Ranger Wiki. That, to me, seems very stupid, but whatever. It's just the Ranger Wiki. It's not a big deal and all that. The way I look at it is that Hyperforce is the equivalent to Akiba Ranger for Sentai. It went on for a couple of seasons. It had continuity with the series. Okay, I haven't really watched all of Akiba Ranger, but I get the basic gist of it. But the point is, Akiba Ranger, honestly, in the grand scheme of Sentai, is disposable. If you don't watch it, it doesn't mean anything. It's not actually part of the full series continuity, because the regular series doesn't tie into it in whatever way. The movies don't reference it, the shows don't reference it. They may have had a couple of toys based on it, but that's about it. It's really an extra disposable series. It doesn't mean anything. And again, Hyperforce, I felt the same way. It doesn't mean anything. They're just playing a game. What's the big deal? Then, this week, it's announced that Boom Studios has created a variant cover for their Power Rangers Shattered Grid event, of which we really don't have any details on, so I can't really comment about that at this point. But one of the variant covers has the Hyperforce Rangers on it. And what that basically means is that Power Rangers Hyperforce, in some way, is tied into Power Rangers canon. And this is where I'm going to kind of lose it. I'm not really going to go off on anything, but this is where I start getting into the problem right here. Now, let's talk about the comics just real quick. The comics themselves are separate from the Power Rangers canon, where you can go ahead and read the comic books, and they have no bearing on the show, and the show really has no bearing on the comics, other than obviously things have been integrated from the show into the comics, because, hey, it's based off it. Okay? But, I honestly would like to think of the Boom Studios comics as canon in some capacity, because I do like some of the concepts that they have. I like the way they do the characters, and the idea that there are parallel realities out there obviously fits in. Because, we got the original movie continuity, the new movie continuity, the TV show continuity, and the RPM continuity. Which, to me, they all tie in perfectly. They fall well. We got 4 different Power Ranger timelines, but we still have the Prime timeline, which is the TV show itself. And I was willing to look at the comics continuity as being its own continuity altogether. Of course, you got, Go-Go Power Rangers, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Power Rangers Pink, Justice League. They're all, again, their own little thing to where it doesn't really affect my enjoyment of the show. My show doesn't really affect the enjoyment. Yeah, it's kind of one of those odd things. It's like being a big fan of Captain America in the comics, and of course, loving the Winter Soldier and Civil War and all that. My opinion of the comics are pretty positive. Let me go ahead and put it that way. But what this is indicating is that the Hyperforce Rangers are going to appear in a comic, unless this is some sort of promotional deal which has nothing to do with anything. It would seem to be that they're indicating that the Hyperforce Rangers are actually going to be in a comic and going to cross over with the comic book Power Rangers in the Shattered Grid event. Even more, the actors, quote unquote, and I'm not trying to disparage anybody here, but they're playing a game. They're not really acting here. There's a big difference right there. They're going to show up at a Comic-Con event, WonderCon I think is what it is, to promote the comic, to promote Hyperforce, whatever, and stuff like that. So basically what's happening here is they're saying that, oh yeah, Hyperforce is part of Power Rangers continuity. The Twitch show where you watch people play a board game is part of Power Rangers continuity. And then, of course, I made the terrible mistake of addressing this issue on Ranger Board. Yeah, that was my first mistake right there, is addressing on Ranger Board, because, of course, I'm the only one that has an opposite opinion about this. Now, again, let me clarify here. The reason that I'm upset about this is that Hyperforce is a TV show where you watch people play a game. It's a Let's Play. A Let's Play with professional, production values, with actual Power Ranger guest stars showing up and stuff. But it's a Let's Play nonetheless, where a bunch of people sit down and play a game that make up a story as they go along. The story, as I understand it, takes place in year 3016. It has to deal with Time Force, which is Jin is in there, and Hyperforce Rangers, and there you go. There is a setup, is what I'm saying. There is a setup that they begin with, and then they have stories that come out of that. So much so that they've actually invented another Time Force Ranger. Yes, the Silver Time Force Ranger. Okay, but again, that's getting off here. But the problem I have is that's what we're doing. We're basically taking professional fan fiction and putting it into Power Rangers continuity. And of course, I never thought of Hyperforce as part of Power Rangers continuity. Again, it's this disposable thing. And yes, I do realize it has Saban's Power Rangers Hyperforce on there, but that just means Saban is footing the bill. Again, my first impression was they were actually going to make a game, and they were advertising it through this. So of course Saban's going to get on that because they're licensing a Power Rangers game. But you're telling me that, again, a bunch of people sitting down making stuff up as they go is now considered a season of Power Rangers? Or this is to be put into the continuity of the regular series? Now, thus far, the television show, nothing else, has referenced Hyperforce. So, again, you can easily ignore it. But by the fact that it seems to be coming into the comic book seems to validate or vindicate the fact that, yes, it is part of continuity. Which I don't get. And of course, everybody is arguing with me on Ranger Board on this particular point, saying that it has always been part of continuity. And I was like, no, this doesn't make any sense. Let me boil it down for you guys this way. So Infinity War comes out next month. Hooray! I still need to see Ant-Man, Spider-Man, Homecoming, and Black Panther. But that comes out next month. How disappointed would you be if you were told that the Infinity War movie was Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, and Chris Hemsworth sitting down, playing a board game, and deciding how they're going to defeat Thanos? Row of 5, and you use your shield, or whatever and stuff. And I, again, don't know much about RPGs. I'm just making it up. I'm not trying to condemn our tabletop RPGs. Just giving an example there. You would feel pretty cheated, and you'd be like, this doesn't count, it's just them having fun, it's them doing whatever and stuff. Where's the actual movie? Well, that's exactly what Hyperforce is. Just a bunch of people sitting down playing a game. How is this supposed to turn into Power Rangers continuity? Again, they're making it up as they go. It's not a real thing. They're not plotting out details. They're not coming up with character motivations and all this other kind of stuff, and character changes and anything. I mean, they're just having fun, and that's fine. But to say that this is part of Power Rangers continuity, that the stuff they're making up is part of it, no, that doesn't make any sense to me, guys. It really doesn't. And yet people are defending, yes, it is Power Rangers canon, you have to watch it, it ties into series, and this is what happens next. Basically what they're saying is, yes, after the events of Power Rangers Time Force, Jen did all this stuff with the Hyperforce Rangers, and they are doing their thing. And that the Silver Time Force Ranger is a real thing, part of Power Rangers continuity. Heck, I even remember a poll that was being done asking if you want the Hyperforce Rangers as Power Rangers Legacy figures. I mean, first of all, it is not part of continuity. I don't care what you say. Hyperforce is not and cannot be part of continuity because of the structure in which it is made. Now, if you come up to me and say, hey, we got a new Power Rangers show coming out called Hyperforce, it's based on the tabletop with similar plot points, but we're actually going to film it and give 20 episodes of a regular season, all right, then I'll be on board. Then I'd be like, okay, so you took the concept and you developed something out of it into a show. That much I'll go along with. Okay, you want to make that? Fine, have at it. Refine it, make it an actual show. But if you're telling me, oh yeah, Ricky, the sequel to Time Force and what Jen has been up to since she's come back to the future is doing this kind of stuff? Oh, and by the way, they developed a Silver Time Force Ranger and all that? Yeah, that stuff? No, that is... What happens on that show has nothing to do with it. And yet people are adamant that that is the case. That whatever they say there in that show is part of Power Rangers canon now. And I just can't buy that. I just can't accept that. Now, maybe you're thinking that I'm a snob because it's not in a professional format. Okay, valid point. But again, it's just... Let me put it this way. What if they sat me down? What if Saban said, Ricky, get in front of a camera and make whatever you want up, and whatever you make up becomes part of Power Rangers continuity? Well, I think a lot of you would have a problem with that, wouldn't you? Because I don't like RPM, so I can just say, hey, all the RPM stuff, it was a dream that Ziggy had when he got bumped on the head by Fresno Bob. I could do that. I really could. And as long as it says Saban's Rick the Barkeep's Power Rangers, you'd have to buy it, right? You'd have to, that's power continuity. RPM was nothing but a dream. And I feel that that's exactly what's going on here. That Saban's given the money for them to do this, and apparently what they say is supposed to be continuity? Continuity is a big thing. It really is, especially for shows like Power Rangers, franchises like Power Rangers. So I just have a hard time accepting that this particular Let's Play fanfic whatever is making its way into Power Rangers continuity because Saban is footing the bill for it. Now, but again, why? I don't understand why. That is the why of this. Why is Saban getting these people together to do this? I mean, did they actually have a list of, okay, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do, you can't make references to this, you can't do, I mean, because when you go into shows like this, there are certain rules and things you can't do. Let's take Enterprise, for example. I guarantee you if there were a set amount of rules going into that series, since it was a prequel series, that you can't do this, can't reference that, can't go here, can't have this person, because again, they'd be violating continuity in some way. Much like, okay, like the Ferengi episode, they didn't ever say that they were Ferengi, and they were let go at the end of the show to where continuity was maintained. I guarantee that was, mandated the producers, creative staff, whoever, saying you can't do this kind of stuff. Does the Hyperforce crew actually have a list of things they can and can't do? They're saying, okay, well, you can introduce any new Ranger, but you can't kill off Trip. Or you can go do this kind of stuff, but you can't do this kind of stuff. I mean, I don't know. The whole thing just baffles me. But again, if this was just a thing onto the side that didn't matter, it was disposable, I could care less. Again, up to this point, I hadn't cared. I've been ignoring the thing because I'm trying to focus on the Sentai. I'm trying to get some episodes of Ninja Steel downloaded so I can follow that. And I got many other things I need to be dealing with here. I don't really have the time or the inclination to follow a 3-hour Let's Play every day. And again, that's how I feel it is. That's not to condemn Let's Plays. It's just saying that is how I feel. I'm watching a bunch of people play a game. And that, to me, is just not entertaining. And that, yes, that fits my sensibilities. But are Power Ranger fans like Let's Play fans, like in general? And again, this is where I'm getting into the problem with the community. There's a community. The Power Rangers community is insisting that this is officially licensed by Saban, therefore it is continuity, therefore it should belong in the comics, therefore it should belong in the movies, it should belong in the TV show. You have to accept it. You can't ignore it. And this is the same kind of paradox I felt, with RPM. I hate RPM, but up until the time they realized it was an alternate universe, I had to accept that it was part of Power Ranger continuity. That at some point between Jungle Fury and RPM, the world went to hell, Armageddon happened, and this was the future of Power Rangers. I didn't like it, but I had to accept it, because that's what you have to go ahead and do. I was relieved when it was an alternate timeline. I was like, that's actually better. It doesn't make RPM a better show, in my opinion, but it's a little less egregious in my mind because, okay, now things start to make a little bit of sense. There were no Mino from Power Rangers, there were no Mystic Force Rangers, everything happened separate continuity, and then you have an interesting world to craft on your own without the continuity. Hyperforce, of course, crafts its continuity based on things that have already happened within the Power Rangers universe, which is perfectly fine. But then people are insisting that it must be part of the main Power Rangers continuity. So much so that Rovang, where he does that awesome Power Rangers timeline that carries everything from the Big Bang up until the future events, he actually included that as part of Power Rangers continuity on the Power Rangers timeline. And I'm just like, I can't wrap my head around why people are accepting or even wanting this to be part of continuity. Now, again, I have not seen all the episodes. Again, I couldn't even get through the first one. So I don't really know if the stuff they're making up is any good or not. I really don't. Okay? I'm going to be honest about that up front. But I still maintain that you can't just make this stuff up and expect it to go right into continuity like this. I do feel that if it's going to be part of the Power Rangers franchise, it needs to be more than a bunch of people sitting down playing a board game. Now, if it turns out that they are scripted to come up with this stuff, and this is the stuff that is in the script and they have to do that, okay, that's going to assuage me a little bit into the direction like I can go ahead and accept it. But at the same time, it's got to be an actual narrative structure. I mean, okay, what's her name right here? Malika, the game master. Okay, if she's like the head writer of this and she's actually, has a script and this is what Paul's supposed to say, this is what Aaron's supposed to say, this is what Black Nerd's supposed to say, and I'm sorry, I don't remember his real name at the moment. If this is what they're supposed to do, okay, again, you can assuage me that is part of continuity that actual writers got together, crafted a story, and just say, hey, we want you guys to act this out. That I can get on board with. That I can say, okay, I can see where this could go ahead and work out. But again, what it is a fanfic being made up on the fly as they play a board game, and I personally do not believe that has any place within Power Rangers continuity to where it is disposable and should be ignored by the main continuity stream. If you enjoy it and you want to watch it as, oh, this is an extra thing, then great, go ahead and do that. But it's kind of like a fan film in a way, and that's honestly what I thought it is. I mean, you can, again, going back to Star Trek examples here, original series, Next Gen, DS9, Voyager, Enterprise, parts of the animated series, and all the feature films, even though it's a separate timeline in the last three, that's all part of Star Trek continuity. Anything beyond that is not part of continuity. Same thing with Star Wars, which I'm actually glad of what Disney did in that, because basically anything outside of the movies was considered continuity in Star Wars. So every book, video game, tabletop game, card game, everything is considered canon up until Disney bought it, to where now it is the 8 numbered films and, of course, the anthology films. And apparently, I'm told that the Clone Wars cartoon is power continuity, but that's neither here nor there. I think when you have continuity, and this is kind of what I'm getting to, is that you need to streamline it. It can't go into all these different directions, and it can't be directionless, because and I feel that's the way what Hyperforce is doing is it's directionless. It's not building up to anything. Now, granted, you can say that real life is like that, and a lot of narrators do that, especially on long-term television shows. But there's just something that's irksome about the idea of what they are doing being considered part of Power Rangers continuity. And I really get upset at the fans that are fighting me on this. If you want to believe that, that's fine, but I haven't heard anything from Saban. Yes, they mentioned on the Twitter that Power Rangers Hyperforce has been announced by Saban Brands, but somebody please show me where the press release says that this is the next evolution in the Power Rangers series, that this is tied into the actual Power Rangers continuity somewhere. I want to see that. I have no evidence of that. And frankly, until word comes out in a direct official documentation saying that Hyperforce is actually part of Power Rangers continuity, I'm going to ignore it and I'm not going to talk about it. And beyond, once this podcast is over, you're not going to hear me talk about Hyperforce ever again, because I do not care and I do not believe it should be within the actual series. And if something changes, then I will have to adjust my views accordingly. Simple as that. So, like with RPM, I had to adjust my views of Power Rangers continuity when RPM came out, and I had to adjust them again once RPM was established as being a separate universe. I didn't like it either way, but that's why I have to go ahead and do. I just can't wipe RPM out continuity because I don't like it. At the same time, I can wipe Hyperforce out continuity because I don't like it, but that is further backed up by the fact that it is not part of continuity whatsoever. But if you're going to go ahead and tell me that Hyperforce is part of continuity without any actual evidence to back that up, then you're also telling me that Mighty Morphin Meowin' Rangers, or whatever the hell that was called, is also part of continuity, and when we do the next crossover event for Power Rangers, we're going to have cats. I mean, you gotta see how stupid that is, right? I think what really gets me upset is really just the blowback from the community here. Because again, I've been eviscerated by people, even though I bring up logical arguments and I try to bring up everything I brought up you guys tonight, and I know I haven't been very articulate in my concerns and all that, and I apologize, but that's the nature of this show. If I'm writing this as my doctoral thesis and all that, yeah, I'd probably do a better job, but just by the nature of this format, that's how it comes out. I, I just I just don't understand. I think that's what it comes down to. I don't understand why this is being considered as part of continuity by so many fans, why people want it to be part of continuity, and why in the world they're actually going to have a comic cover with the Hyperforce Rangers on there. Now, again, maybe this is a variant cover just as a shout out to promote Hyperforce. Maybe they don't show up in the comic whatsoever, and everybody's wrong about this, you know, and I'm making a big deal over nothing. It's just a variant cover that the characters will not show up. Fine. That, hey, I'm cool with that happening. But if they do show up in the comic, again, I gotta know the justification for this. I just don't understand why they think. I mean, because you could take literally any Power Rangers fanfic on the internet, and if Saban pays for it, they can make in continuity. I mean, hey, Saban can call me up tomorrow and say, hey, Rick, we want to go ahead and buy Power Rangers Mythology. I give them the rights to the thing or whatever. They take my stories, and what do you know? In Shattered Grid, Sharnika and Michelle show up to help fight against I Guy or whatever the heck it is going to go ahead and be. And you guys probably would not like that. You probably would not enjoy that. Why is Rick's fanfic in an actual Power Rangers comic? You're telling me the Power Rangers Mythology is a real series out there within the comic universe? Yeah, you guys would be pissed, right? When the shoe's on the other foot, you know, hey, I mean, you guys can see the perspective. I suppose it's because they enjoy this, and by they I mean the fans, that they actually enjoy this and it's popular in some regard, that maybe that's why Boom Studios, Saban, whoever's making the decision, decide, hey, let's go ahead and actually put them into the comic book. But that's got to be it. There can't be anything significant beyond that other than cross marketing. That's the only thing I can go ahead and think about is they want people to watch the Twitch show. But if they do, why don't they just advertise on the regular Power Rangers? Why don't they actually make toys of this? Why don't they do more? Yes, they have a social media presence, but if you are looking at your key demographic, or at least what you claim is your key demographic, if it ain't in the toy store and if it's not on Nickelodeon, it's really hard for them to get engaged with it, and that's just kind of the truth there. Alright, so I think I've talked enough about it, but I think you guys get my point. I think you guys get where I'm coming from, but again, I don't care about Hyperforce. I'm not going to go ahead and care about it, and I hope this alternate cover is just some sort of marketing ploy that doesn't mean anything. And no, in the future, don't tell me what they're doing on Hyperforce. I don't want to go ahead and follow it. If it somehow gets into canon and you guys can go ahead and prove that to me, by all means, I'll reevaluate it and I'll have a follow-up podcast to go ahead and talk about my thoughts. But yeah, I'm not going to go through, what is it, 15 or so episodes or 3 hours of people playing games and doing whatever and stuff just to follow up on Power Rangers continuity. Now, if those were 3-hour movies of Hyperforce Power Rangers where you actually have actors and set pieces and writers and stuff, okay, that's a different story altogether. Again, maybe it's me being a traditional snob in this case, but I just don't look at people playing games as being part of Power Rangers continuity. I've said 100 times, that's kind of my final thought on it. But certainly, I got to figure out where my audience is on this. Where do you guys fall in Power Rangers Hyperforce? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Is it part of Power Rangers continuity? Is it not part of Power Rangers continuity? What do you think about it? And I'm sure the more vocal of you out there will tell me. Just guys, keep it civil. You know, I mean, it's discussions like that I had with Ranger Board that just make me want to quit Ranger Board altogether sometimes. But you know what? I'm a resilient person. I never give up, just like Danny and Max, and I keep going on. It just, man, I wish I just wasn't at the other end of the Power Ranger spectrum. Not that I wish I could conform to what everybody wants me to conform to, but I do wish there were a lot of times my opinion wasn't so radically different from the quote unquote mainstream fans or whatever. In any case, I do want to thank you guys for putting up with me tonight. Thank you for listening. Leave your comments below. Let me know what you think. Otherwise, thank you all for listening. Have a good evening. And the tavern is now closed.